The wind howled over the dry plains of New Mexico, carrying with it the scent of blood and smoke. The desert was no friend to the weak, and that night it had already claimed 3 men. Corporal Jesse Rourke spat the dust from his mouth and stared into the dark, listening to the eerie echo of coyotes that weren't coyotes at all. He'd been with the Texas Rangers for 8 years, long enough to know when nature went quiet, something worse was coming. Beside him, Sergeant Will Boone reloaded his Winchester for the 6th time. 40 Apache scouts, he muttered, his voice low and cracked from thirst. You sure that's what the tracker said? 40, Rourke replied, and he said they're following our trail like ghosts. They don't miss. The other 4 Rangers stirred in the dying firelight, eyes wide and hollow. They'd started with 12 men 2 days ago. Now they were 6, running low on ammo, low on horses, and lower on hope. It was 1876, and west of the Pecos, the land belonged to no one, except those who could kill fast and sleep light. The trouble started near Eagle Pass, when the Rangers stumbled on an abandoned army wagon, burned to splinters, its mule shot and stripped. The air had stunk of death and copper, and what they found inside made hardened men go silent. There were 7 soldiers, scalped, and next to them, a small girl, her eyes open to the sky, untouched but dead from fright. Apaches, Boone had said grimly. A scout party. They're getting bolder. Captain Elias Turner, the oldest and hardest among them, had only nodded. Then we bring God's fire to 'em before they bring it to the settlers. But they didn't know, these weren't just any scouts. They were 40 chosen men, trained by the Apache war chief Chato himself. Silent, invisible, and merciless. By the 3rd night, the Rangers' campfire was nothing more than a faint glow buried beneath rocks. The men spoke in whispers, rifles clutched like lifelines. Private Harlan wiped the sweat from his brow. Why ain't they attacked yet? Rourke looked out into the darkness. Because they want us to feel it. Apache don't just kill. They wait till you're sure you're safe, then they come. Boone grunted. Hell, I'd rather they just come now and be done. That's when a sound split the night, a whistle, sharp and high, like a hawk's cry. Every man froze. Turner's voice came out low. Positions. Now. The desert went silent again. No wind, no bugs, just the endless tension of death circling unseen. Then the first arrow came, hissing through the dark, striking Harlan clean through the throat. He fell back, gurgling, the firelight catching the panic in his eyes before he went still. The Rangers fired into the blackness, muzzle flashes lighting up their fear. Shadows darted among the rocks, too fast to aim at, too quiet to hear until it was too late. Rourke counted 3 bodies before dawn. 3 Rangers, gone. They buried them shallow because the ground was too hard and the Apaches too close. By the next evening, only Turner, Boone, and Rourke remained. Their horses were gone, their water gone with them. Boone's hands shook as he loaded his last cartridges. We should have never left the river, he said. That tracker warned us, said this was cursed ground. Turner's eyes were sunken, but steady. We're Rangers, we don't turn back. Then we'll die Rangers, Boone spat. The captain didn't argue. He just stared into the horizon, where the sun was bleeding red into the mesas. It was then they saw movement, tiny flickers atop the ridge. Apache scouts, at least a dozen, watching. Turner stood tall, his shadow long across the sand. They want us alive, he said quietly, or they'd have finished us last night. Why? Rourke asked. Turner's jaw tightened. To make an example. That night, they took shelter in the ruins of an old Spanish mission, nothing but stone walls and ghosts of faith left behind. The wind moaned through the hollow windows, and Rourke found himself praying to a god he hadn't spoken to in years. Boone sat against the wall, bleeding from a graze on his arm. You think we'll make it to sunrise? Turner didn't answer. He was staring at something in his hand, a small silver cross bent and tarnished. My boy gave me this, he said softly. Before I left Austin, told me it'd keep me safe. Rourke looked at the cross. Maybe it still will. Turner smiled faintly. Then I hope it works better than my rifle. They laughed, quiet, hopeless laughter that men share when they've already made peace with dying. Sometime past midnight, the Apaches came. They didn't scream or shout. They just moved, like smoke, like death itself. The first one appeared in the doorway, bow drawn. Boone fired before he could breathe, dropping him instantly. But two more slipped through the window, knives flashing, the mission filled with chaos, gunfire, grunts, the wet sound of steel and flesh. Rourke saw Boone fall, his neck cut open. Turner slammed the butt of his rifle into another's skull, but an arrow found his shoulder, spinning him to the ground. Rourke fired until his rifle clicked empty. Then he grabbed Boone's revolver and kept firing. The smoke stung his eyes. His ears rang. He didn't know how many he hit, just that they kept coming. Then, suddenly, it stopped. The silence was worse than the fight. He blinked through the haze, coughing, and realized he was the only one breathing. Turner lay face down, the cross still in his hand. Boone was gone, and outside, the ridge was lined with shadows, dozens of them. 40 Apache scouts, silent as statues, watching him. One stepped forward. His face was painted in black and white stripes, his eyes hard but not cruel. He raised a hand. "You kill good," he said in rough English. "Too good to waste." Rourke raised his revolver with a trembling hand. "Come finish it, then." The Apache smiled faintly. "You go home. Tell them. Tell Texas Rangers, this land is not theirs." Then he turned, and like smoke in a windstorm, they vanished back into the desert. When the army found Rourke 3 days later, he was half dead and delirious. The mission was filled with the bodies of his brothers, and 40 sets of footprints leading into the wasteland. He told them everything, the attack, the 40 scouts, the mercy he didn't understand. At first, no one believed him. The idea that the Apaches had spared a ranger was unthinkable. But weeks later, when they sent a patrol to the same place, they found something carved into the stone above the mission door. "Respect the land, or the land will bury you." Years later, in 1876, the Texas Rangers issued a report, the quiet, almost embarrassed admission recorded in their archives. Greater than, the Apache scouts do not fight as savages. They fight with honor, with patience, with knowledge of the land. Our men fell not to monsters, but to warriors who defend what is theirs. They never printed that line in the papers. The public wasn't ready for it. But among Rangers, the story passed like gospel. Some called it shame, others called it truth. Rourke lived another 10 years, haunted by the sound of the desert wind in the eyes that had spared him. He never picked up a rifle again. He bought a small piece of land near the Rio Grande, where he grew corn that refused to thrive. Sometimes, at night, he'd sit by the fire and stare south toward the shadowed hills. He'd swear he could see them still, 40 figures, painted for war, watching him from afar. And sometimes, when the wind was just right, he'd whisper to the empty dark, "Don't worry, I told them. They say the desert keeps its secrets." But the Rangers kept this one because it was the only story that made them afraid to come back. Afraid not of the Apaches, nor the arrows, nor the endless sands, but of what they learned out there. That courage is not owning the land. It's surviving on it. And the land always decides who belongs. Would you like me to create 2 cinematic image prompts matching this story's title, with the Texas Rangers admitted in 1876, after facing 40 Apache scouts alone?